wheel, you can take a 21mm socket and take off the lug nuts. The hubcap comes off separate. And slide the wheel off. Take these two caliper bracket bolts out. You're going to take the caliper and the bracket off together. Use a 22mm socket. Loosen these up. Now slide the caliper off. You might have to wiggle it back and forth. And then take a brake caliper hanger, and just attach it to the coil spring. Now take the rotor off. If the rotor is stuck on there, just take a hammer and just hit in these locations. You should be able to tap it off. Remove the cotter pin. You can use some straight cutters. Slide it out. And take a 32mm socket, remove the axle nut. Take the wheel speed sensor out, use a 10mm socket, remove this bolt. And slide the sensor out. You might have to wiggle it back and forth a little bit and just set it aside. Remove the 4 bolts on the back side of the hub, or the back side of the knuckle. Use a 17mm socket. Take all of those out. Now take a hammer and give it a tap from the back side. You can pull it out a little bit. This shield is going to separate too. And very carefully, just give the axle a tap. You could, if it's stuck in there, use a punch so that you don't damage the threads. This one's not that bad. And slide it off. You could take a die grinder and just clean up some of this area right here if there's any corrosion. Just be careful. If you want, you can put some anti-seize on here. I'm just going to put some on. This is a spray form. Take the shield, and it's going to slide on this way where there's a lip right there facing the rotor. You don't want to put it on this way where there's no lip. And have the opening where the caliper goes. On the back side of the hub, there's these little gaps right here. You want these at the top so that when the wheel speed sensor goes in there, it's going to go through that hole. Otherwise, if you put it on upside down, the wheel speed sensor won't be able to get in there. So check where the wheel speed sensor goes, and that's going to go right there. And slide it in position. Get the bolts started from the back side. Now I'll torque these bolts to 65 foot-pounds. Put the wheel speed sensor back in position. Put the bolt in and tighten it down. Put the axle nut on. I'm going to use a pry bar, prevent the hub from spinning, and then torque this to 129 foot-pounds. And take a cotter pin. You want to not reuse the old one. Use some side cutters and just bend it. You can trim the excess if you need to. Now, if the rotor that you have is pretty rusty, you want to clean up the backside, just use a grinder, a die grinder. Just be careful, don't take off too much material. If you want to, you can use a little anti-seize on here. We're just going to use the spray. Just give that a little coat and put the rotor on carefully. And you can put a nut on if you want, a lug nut. Keep the rotor from falling off, just for installation purposes. Take the caliper hanger off. And just make sure the hose isn't twisted and slide it over the rotor. And get the bolts started and tighten them down. Now we're going to torque these two bolts to 107 foot-pounds. Take that lug nut off if you put it on. And slide the wheel up with the hubcap on. Just line the hubcap up with the valve stem, the notched out part, and put the lug nuts on. Now we're going to torque the lug nuts down to 83 foot-pounds in a cross pattern to tighten the wheel down evenly. And just go around again, double check.